Welcome, everybody, to the Monday, February 27th, 2023 regular school board meeting. Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Grant?
Present.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Present.
Mr. Carpenter?
Present.
Mr. Leeds?
Present.
And Mr. Fulham?
Present.
Would everyone please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1.3, any additions or deletions to the agenda?
There is one addition. We're removing the executive session at the end.
Okay. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 1.4, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. All right, moving on to Section 2, discussion and comments from the board. Item 2.1, legislative. Mr. Leeds.
Have a couple of things tonight. First of all, tomorrow is going to be a red letter day in Columbus. Senate Bill 1, which is the transferring of the Board of Education, the State Board of Education underneath the governor. There's going to be some pros and cons about whether they should have it or not, but the guy wants a vote tomorrow afternoon as to whether they're going to do that.
What was the House bill number?
Senate Bill 2,
Senate Bill.
Senate Bill 1,
Senate Bill 1.
yeah. And I talked to Representative Hall today, and he, Mr. Grant, he asked that we hold off about going up there to visit Columbus for a few weeks because they don't know what they're doing. They just got their committee set up last week.
Okay.
Plus the fact they've had the death up there of the one legislator, so they have to get that and get him taken care of. Plus, they're still fighting over the Speaker of the House.
So maybe the end of March, beginning
Well,
of
he
April?
said just give him a couple of weeks, and he said, I'll get back to you,
Okay.
to what we can do.
Okay, we'll set up a date.
But there is a lot of things that they have brought up regarding some taxes, reducing the taxes for the whole state. But they're just talking about that, and I'll give you a better report next month on that. Other than that, that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah, did you guys get the email about House Bill 1?
Yeah.
So House
Yes.
Bill 1,
Yes.
Looking at reducing property tax,
Yeah.
which would have a major impact on schools and local government,
I
so.
think it's 35 to 31%.
Yeah, it's about going flat tax or something along those
Yeah.
lines, so, you know, I'd just stay cognizant of that one and reach out to Thomas Hall.
Yep.
They did talk about trying to make the schools whole if they do that, but there's no plan on how that's going to happen.
Yes,
so
I don't know how you do those calculations to make that work.
I don't either, so.
Magic.
Right. It makes me very nervous.
Kind of like their formulas for
Everything?
everything.
Yeah.
For school funding and enrollment. All right. Butler Tech, Mr. Guido.
Thank you, Mr. President, Mrs. President, or Mrs. Vice President, coming up. Thank you for having me tonight. I wanted to update you on a couple of things, specifically to Monroe. Robert and I had lunch last week just to talk about expanded programming and maybe some ways that we could come up with some creative ways of helping the overcrowding issue of that. So nothing specific, but just really kind of brainstorming from that. But we are certainly ready and willing to help in any way that we are able to. I did meet with the city of Hamilton, Miami University, and Butler Tech all got together and met and talked about that Quantum Leap program. It's been in the paper, all the grant funding that we received. It's a partnership with Miami University and the city of Middletown, actually, for two different projects. One is advanced manufacturing in the Hamilton area, and then the aviation program at Hookfield. So the city of Middletown did approve $500,000 in co-funding of that project, so that one will be off the ground, and looking forward to both of those projects to really ramp up and hopefully offer new pathways for some students in Butler County. I've attended, I think, every chamber meeting in Butler County here recently, so December and January and going into February are busy because they not only have their regular meeting, but they also have their annual meetings as well. So I've seen Robert at a couple of them and Holly as well. So we did host Warren Davidson at the Natural Science Center here. He came out and visited, so it was good to see him there. I attended the ACTE policy seminar in Columbus last month as well. That was good. So we got to meet with all the legislators in this area and a few in the surrounding counties as well. So that was good. And then next month is my DC ACTE National Policy Seminar. So we're going to go out there again and look forward to that as well. The only other thing I wanted to remind you is I think it's in the February newsletter about Cafe Lee. Cafe Lee is our restaurant that's hosted by the students. Each senior picks a meal that they plan from start to end. If you guys ever want to go to lunch there, you just have to do that. Go to the website. There's a registration for reservations. It does get very crowded in there, so you probably need reservations. But if you guys have an opportunity to go out there and visit that program, the food is phenomenal. It's very cheap, and it's a good place to have lunch. Community members are allowed to attend as well if they want to go. Just schedule and have a real nice lunch. Go out there and do that. So.
Well, if it's anything like the food that's at the all boards
Yeah.
meeting,
Yeah.
it's phenomenal.
It is.
So,
It's those
it's
kids
really
that,
good
it's
food.
the same kids that are cooking there. So very good. That's all I have tonight.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Guido.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Finance.
The Finance Committee met on January 23rd. We reviewed the audit report for fiscal year 2022. Public schools must be audited annually to confirm that money from taxes to fund schools is protected and used according to the law. In addition to auditing the school's financial policies, procedures, and financial transactions, they also audit our annual financial report, which is presented on generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP. This report is important for borrowing funds for building. The audit is a 3-month process. There were no citations or recommendations, which indicates that we can trust that taxes we pay for our schools are protected and being used how they were intended. Not only does a good audit report prove to the public that tax funds are protected, a good audit report helps us when we go to borrow money for a new building because it shows that we are a low-risk entity and we are more likely able to obtain the best interest rates for borrowing. We also reviewed the 5-year forecast and discussed some of the components that make up the forecast, including various events that could occur to alter projections both in revenue and expenses. We discussed some of the upcoming projects, including all schools are supported and data is managed by one or more of the 22 information technology centers throughout the state. The ITCs manage the financial, student, and other data for all the public and some non-public schools in Ohio. The decision was made that our treasurer team would no longer receive support from the Southwest Ohio Computer Consortium in Hamilton, but would now receive support from Western Ohio Computer Organization located in Sydney, Ohio. The team at WOCO are experts in the financial accounting system that we use and have supported many districts using the same systems for years. Student data and software will be managed locally by the Southwest Ohio Computer Consortium. We discussed the steps moving forward with the Expedited Local Partnership Program, or ELP. This will lock us into a 68% state share in building of a new school, but it requires that we spend at least $1 million or more on facility projects. We have permanent improvement funds to do this, and we are making plans to spend these funds now and in the future to support facility improvements. Holly reviewed the transition to pay schools that has now taken the place of Easy Pay and the advantages it will have for students and parents. This new system was just implemented, and her team and our building secretaries have been working through this transition. We also discussed the benefits of new software called Unified Talent, provided by the same company that supports our financial data and systems. Unified Talent will automate onboarding of new employees, making the process easier for applicants and our HR department in managing the hiring process. It will also permit staff to view their personal records electronically. Finally, we discussed the shortage of licensed CFO treasurers in Ohio. The state is looking at the requirements to be a CFO or treasurer and reaching out to universities to offer educational pathways to this profession. The Ohio Department of Education has also recently changed some of the requirements to be a treasurer to make it easier for people to obtain a treasurer license. That's it.
Okay, very good. Any questions? All right. Moving on to 2.4, student achievement.
Student achievement. So I have kind of a lot since we haven't met since the beginning of January. So we have a lot of student achievements from January and February. To start, the primary yearbook cover and back has been designed. I'd like to recognize Cody Craven for designing the front of the cover of the yearbook, and the back cover was designed by, I think, 5 students: Eugenia, Mesh Bonsu, Shayray Adaraki, June Cole, and Riley Herring. So that's pretty exciting that we have the primary students designing the actual yearbook cover and back. I think that's pretty awesome. The Monroe Elementary and Junior High, there was a total of 231 essays submitted in the Daughters of the American Revolution, the Daughters of the American Revolution History Essay Contest this year. There were several students that were moved on to the state level. They were Ainsley Hayden in 5th grade, Olivia Fields in 6th grade, Carly Watts, 7th grade, and Alyssa Bell in 8th grade. Each of these students received a certificate, a medal, and an award check for $50. That's pretty exciting. Those students then went to the next level, and 2 of the students were actually chosen as the 2022 winners of the Ohio Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution History, and that was Olivia Fields and Carly Watts, which is very exciting that we have 2 of the chosen winners. And this is the 4th time that Monroe has been represented at the state level. So that's pretty exciting for the elementary and junior high students. In addition, Sweeta Adhikar participated in a reading contest for the Sons of the American Revolution, and she was awarded a Patriotic Ready Program certificate. And there is a video of her up on YouTube where they recorded her reading, and it was actually she did a good job. So if anybody wants to watch that video, you can just send me an email and I'll send you the link for that. Many of the students recently participated in a countrywide math contest on Zoomdog that ended last week. Out of the top 10 finishers, get this, 7 of the Monroe Elementary students were in the top 10. So those were Chucky Anya, 1st place, Arlo Fuchs, 2nd place, Ainsley Hayden, 3rd place, Maya Talley, 5th place, Cameron Glay, 6th place, Avery Begley, 8th place, and Brylan Oben Asar, 10th place. That's pretty exciting. Out of the top 10, 7 at Monroe.
That's awesome.
It's pretty good. So the Monroe Junior High, there are 2 students of the month for January. 7th grade was Stephen Jones, and one of the teachers had said Stephen is hardworking and always in high spirits. He's upbeat and positive and brings a smile to everyone. And the 8th grade student of the month was Ava Justice. Ava goes above and beyond in class and out of class daily, checking on her classmates as well as her teachers. Her presence is always bright spot of the day because her excitement for everyday tasks is infectious. And I should say with Ava, like all the teachers had said, that she specifically reaches out to her classmates and the teachers themselves to make sure they're having a good day. So in the high school, there were 38 students that donated blood in January. So that's really good community service that they did. And also during Hornet time for the Valentine's Day, students made postcards for the pen pals out Mount Pleasant. And some of their artwork, I was given some. Did we get it on the screen? Is there a? Maybe not. I asked for some of the examples to be put up.
Did you get those to send from the, remember sending?
The what?
She sent the artwork.
If not, it's okay, don't worry about it.
Okay.
It's okay. So I got some examples, and I thought I would show them, but that didn't work out. I'll get better at that. Give media more time to get things ready. So also, just a few more. I want to say congratulations to the Power of the Pen team for their performance at the district tournament, which was held at the Little Miami Middle School. Our 7th grade team finished 8th out of 16. And 3 of our riders qualified for the regional tournament, which will be this Saturday, March 4th, at the Cincinnati Country Day School. So I wish them the best of luck. And the Monroe riders who qualified for the regionals are 7th graders Maya Peck and Griffin Diffenbacher Tice and 8th grader Clayton Herring. I'd also like to congratulate the high school students who received a 30 or higher on the ACT, but we'll talk more about that in a few minutes.
Very good.
And that's all that I have right now.
All right, thank you, Libby. All right, 2.5, MEA. Anyone from MEA? All right, thank you. All right, moving on to section 3, communication. Robert?
We're going to start with Mr. Prohaska. He has some special students to recognize here this evening.
Hello, everyone.
No.
So we are here to recognize the ACT 30-plus list. So we had 6 seniors that achieved a 30 and above. I want to put this in context for you. On average, and it has dropped a little bit because of COVID, the state average is like a 19.1 on the ACT. So these kiddos received a 30 and above. And one of them actually got a perfect score. So that's pretty incredible. Okay. So they couldn't all be here tonight, but out of the 6, 3 of them are. I would like to give them this certificate that is actually created by the ACT for us to give out to our students, and hopefully we could get a good snapshot in front of everybody. I'll tell you what, just knowing, we spend a lot of time talking about athletics and athletic scholarships. We really don't do enough service for those who are making it, getting it done academically, because there is a lot of money that's involved here, especially when you're on in that 30-plus range. Really could make the difference on, hey, leaving school without having to pay much and not being in debt. So, and I want to throw this out. I know that, yes, these students behind me have some incredible natural gifts, but then their parents and relatives are here tonight, and it doesn't get done without the support at home. There's no doubt that played a major role in how far these kids got with these scores. And all this does is it opens up an avenue to some great experiences that are forthcoming. So with that being said, the first one I have is Delaney Reenan. After that, it's Maria McGuire. Not to do any disservice, both of them were over 30. And then, yeah, you guys could go stand over there. And the last one, Peyton Hargraves, received a 36. So congratulations, and hope we could do,
Yes,
I know you guys like to do the photo.
absolutely. So we'll let you hand those out, and we'll congratulate them.
There you go. Congratulations. I'll break the camera.
Peyton, you might have to sit down.
Tall and smart, all right.
Good job, guys. Good job.
going to take off in 1 second. I do want to make sure you know who the other 3 recipients were of the 30-plus club. Because of prior commitments, I mean, we got these kids doing a lot of great things. Lindsay Bevac was another over 30. And we've got Brad Russell also. And Gabe Salazar was also our. And on top of that, we had a group of about close to 20 that were in the 25 to 30 range as well. That's also pretty incredible too.
Yes.
So, but congratulations. So thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely,
Yes.
great job.
Great job.
That was very good.
Congratulations, everybody.
All these kids, if not most of them, are sports or music. Which means they're not just studying. It's amazing.
All right, moving on to section 3.2, comments from the public. Just a quick statement, the Board of Education recognizes the values of school governance and public comments on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters of community interest. The public may participate during comments from the public or when recognized by the board president or superintendent. Those wishing to address the board must fill out request forms provided at the meetings. They should be submitted to the treasurer before the meeting begins. Persons addressing the board must give his or her name and address, and there will be a 3-minute limit for addressing the board. So with that being said, Polly, you are up.
Good evening. My name is Polly Hasty. I live at 3779 Hollybrook Drive. Lifelong resident of Monroe, Monroe graduate. My daughter goes to Monroe. She's the field commander of the marching band. A quick quote that I read earlier today. If we expect students to be kind, we need to be kind adults. If we expect students to be cooperative, we need to be cooperative adults. If we expect students to be responsible, we need to be responsible adults. For those that don't know, here in the building, I'm a school nurse. I work in a neighboring district. There's a lot of turmoil at that district. There's a lot of anger at that district. I can honestly say, and this is all I wanted to say, is I am proud to be a Monroe graduate. I am proud to be a parent of a Monroe student, although she doesn't attend Monroe. She's at Butler Tech currently. I'm proud that she's going to get a Monroe high school diploma. I am so proud that you guys are able to cooperate with one another and you're here for the business of the children, because this is the business of educating children, making sure children are healthy, are educated, are whole, compact people that we're putting out into the world, and they're responsible and productive adults when they leave this formal setting. So all I wanted to say tonight was thank you. Thank you for being what we expect our children to be, because we need to lead by example. And if the children see us leading by an example that we want them to be, then we are going to produce children that we want them to be. So all I wanted to say was thank you for just being civil, kind, and, you know, the examples of adulthood that we want our children to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to 3.3, superintendent's update.
I have nothing to say after that. That was, I can't agree more. I have said since I've been here what a special place Monroe is, and I echo your sentiments that every district has issues, and we have issues, but this is a great place to be, and great kids, great teachers, great staff, some great board. So thank you. I appreciate it. In all seriousness, I do have a couple quick updates here, and I did forget my glasses, so I'll do my best. Are those readers?
Yeah.
Thank you.
See how supportive we are up here?
Look at that. All right, much better. First thing I wanted to talk about was facilities. We had, last week on Wednesday, the Facilities Committee toured the addition at Rosa Parks Elementary and the Middletown Junior High. Those were both buildings that were designed by Fanning and Howie, who we recently contracted with for pre-bond work. And it was a really great tour just to see some recent buildings, to see how different things could be. Doesn't mean that's the direction we're necessarily going, but it gave us some great ideas. There were some things that I loved about them, some things I thought, well, we probably would do things differently, but that's why we have that committee, to get input from the community. So that was really great. The other piece of the facilities update that I wanted to share is this Wednesday, Mr. Catanzaro and I are meeting with the city manager and the engineer and the Fanning and Howie to sit down and look at our current traffic patterns. Yes, I sit in the drop-off line every morning like many, and it does get frustrating. There are a lot of cars. I think a lot of it can be fixed with just traffic patterns alone. It just doesn't make, there's people going every which way, and if we had some, things to work on that, I think it would help. But we're also looking at possible second exits, different options there. So I will report back after we have that meeting later this week. The next one, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Prohaska, I believe it's the 14th is the Student Serve Day. Is that correct? Yes. That is a day where the upperclassmen are involved in different testing. One of them is the ACT. And so the freshmen, when most of the building is testing, it's very disruptive to the schedule, and it often becomes kind of almost a wasted day. And so a few years back, prior to COVID, and then they brought it back last year, it's called the Student Serve Day, and all of the freshmen sign up for different options. I know this personally. I have a freshman who is signed up for one of them, but they go to different things in the community, and they are doing things to serve. I remember, Debbie, last year, one of the groups served lunches to all the firemen, police officers, any of the first responders in Monroe. This year, there's going to be groups that go to Mount Pleasant to work with some of the senior citizens and do some things there. They're going to parks to clean up. They're cleaning up around here. So it is just a great way, since it's already a disruptive day, let's do something and give back to the community. And it's organized by the high school counselors and the staff, and they do a fantastic job, and it is a really valuable day for the kids. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, Tom already touched on it a little bit, as well as AJ. There's a lot going on in Columbus right now that we need to just continue to keep an eye on. Some of it is very positive for Monroe as far as school finances, but it always makes me leery when, yes, we may be getting some more money getting uncapped, but then as we hear that, more money is going towards vouchers or backpack bills, or taking some state foundation money away for other things. So it's just a lot to keep an eye on, and we will continue to monitor it. And I know that you guys are talking about going to Columbus. I have met with some of the local representatives also. I know you guys have as well, and we will continue to be advocates for Monroe moving forward. So any questions on that?
I know, I would like to say for the Serve Day.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. The Serve Day, I went last year, and it was a really fun experience to actually interact with the kids while they were serving lunch. So if that's going to happen again, if we could let us know, so maybe we can, if we have the time to actually go, and if they're cleaning up at a park,
I'll send out the location, the
stuff.
times and locations to
Yeah.
everybody. So
That's always fun to
Yeah.
try and get together with the students.
Very good. Thank you, Robert. All right, moving on to Section 4, Treasurer's Business. Item 4.1.
Okay, I'm asking the board to approve the minutes from the organizational meeting and the regular meeting that were held on January 9th.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
and Mr. Grant.
Aye. Motion carried. Item 4.2.
Next, I've provided a treasurer's report for January 30th, 2023. And I'll let you read it at your leisure. But we're pretty much on track with where we expected to be at this time of year. We're 58% through the year, and our actual expenses and receipts are so far pretty much on track with our projections. And just mirror what Robert said, I'm really pleased with the governor's budget, that he's supporting uncapping districts, and they've sent out simulations which do look good for Monroe, and we don't know what other things we know they're considering other things with local taxes, and some of that just came out today, but we'll see how that goes. But I was pleased, at least this took, I know it's going to pass, so, thank you.
Okay. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions on the financial report? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. And item 4.3.
I'm asking the board to approve the bond fund report, and I want to report that all the money is where it should be.
All right, very good. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Oh,
Thank you,
second.
Mr. Leeds. Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions? All right, Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. And item 4.4.
Okay, I'm asking the board to accept the audit which was completed for fiscal year 2022. It was pretty much a perfect audit.
That's right.
Thanks to everyone.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions?
It was a great audit. It's, Holly, your group needs a pat on the back.
I'll tell them that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, or they'll hear this through the microphone. They're listening to
We're all
recordings.
watching, right?
Eagerly watching.
Thank you, and
Yeah.
and congrats on it.
Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. All right. Thank you, Mrs. Cahill. Now, moving on to Section 5, Superintendent's Personnel Business.
It's recommended the board approve the following resignations.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions? All right. Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 5.2.
It's recommended that the board approve the ending of the probationary period for the following employee.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. And item 5.3.
It's recommended the board approve hiring the following employees.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions on the hirings? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 5.4.
It's recommended the board approve the following extracurricular contracts.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. All right, any questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Abstain, motion carried. And item 5.5.
It's recommended that the board approve the stipends for the following teachers for mentoring student teachers. Again, that money comes from the universities. It's just.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions?
No, thank you for mentoring those student teachers.
Yeah.
May Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 5.6.
It's recommended that the board approve a MOU for a job share at the junior high. This is not a new job share. It's one that's been in place for years, but they have to apply each year.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions? All right, Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. And item 5.7.
It's recommended that the board approve the following new job descriptions as presented. I do
May I-
just want to point out quickly,
Yes.
the school psychologist is not anything new, but we have gone through the ESC for years, and they just can't find them for us, so we're taking matters into our own hands, so to speak. So we didn't have a current job description for them.
Okay. May I have a, may I have a motion? Yeah, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions? All right, Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. And item 5.8.
It's recommended the board approve the MOU with MEA for the school psychologists, and that's just because there is, bringing them in, there's no current language or salary schedule for school psychologists. So.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr.
Second.
Leeds. Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions?
Keep you on your toes.
All right, Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 5.9.
It's recommended that the board approve the administrative salary schedule modifications as presented, and again, that's just with the other two positions. Those are being added.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Moving on to Section 6, Superintendent's Other Business. 6.1.
It's recommended the board approve the following donations. Again, always very generous community and local businesses.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Missed that one again.
Hey, Tom, she got you.
She's a little closer.
All right, any questions?
Just want to thank everybody
No.
for their contributions and
Everybody,
donations.
thanks for the donations.
Yep, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.2.
It's recommended the board approve the interdistrict open enrollment in grades K through 12 for the 23-24 school year.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions?
I just wanted to make a comment, clarification comment here. I actually looked into getting rid of this because we are not taking any new students. We are way over capacity. We do not have room for students. We do have only a few remaining open enrolled students in the buildings, and we don't want to kick them out midway through their school career. So we have to do this resolution for them to continue. This does not include employees' kids. That's separate. But as far as just, somebody that's not happy and wants to come to Monroe schools because they've heard what great things about it, we are not allowing any new students, so.
Okay. Any other questions? Any questions? Okay. Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Thanks for that clarification, Robert.
Yep.
Item 6.3.
It's recommended to approve the contract with ESP Media.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions?
Just remind me, with this arrangement, I think we talked about it, but this is a net neutral, actually. I think we might technically be saving money off of our current website situation, so maybe you can elaborate on that.
This one is actually the athletic website, and we have, once we are up and running, we have the ability to advertise it. It could actually generate pay for the cost of itself and generate revenue for the athletic department, so.
So if
And
there's any
the
donors in the
school district website is the cost neutral one that we went to a while back, so.
Gotcha.
When would this be active?
I think our goal launch date is April, so things are ready to go for summer activities going into the fall, so. They've already started, they pull the information off our current website, so.
Do we have a domain name yet? Do we have a domain yet? Did we secure a domain? All right, cool. I'm excited to hear the launch. All right.
Yeah. Well, if anybody wants to know what it's going to look like, feel free to head over to letsgobigmo.com.
Say next
Oh,
has a-
here we go.
Actually, that's not a good one to go to because that one's the older version, so you want to go to St. X.
Oh, here.
It's
You
better
never
than
really
Muller.com.
got good
Hey, you two separate now.
Yes.
Come on.
All right, Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.4.
It's recommended for the board to approve the overnight Thespian State Conference held at Riverdale High School. That's up in Akron, and just, we need board approval for any overnight trips.
May I have a motion?
So move, second.
Tim?
What was that?
So,
was
motion
crazy.
by AJ, second by Mr. Carpenter.
Ooh.
I didn't even hear it.
It's fine.
At
I'm
the
just
same
listening to
time.
I'm just keeping everybody on their toes today.
Any questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.5.
It's recommended the board approve the following out-of-state trip requests.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions?
I have a-
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I have a statement. I think it's great that we have athletics that are going out of state. I think it's a good team-building experience and it's a good environment to go compete and practice with other organizations. So I think it's really good that we do this.
I was just going to say, none of these are overnight trips, but just because you cross the state line, you have to have it board approved, so.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.6.
It's recommended the board approve the authorizing the 23-24 membership to the OHSAA, Ohio High School Athletic Association.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.7.
It's recommended the board approve the All-American Publishing contract to provide athletic schedule posters. I'm sure you've seen them in the schools and local businesses. It is at no cost to the district.
Even better. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions? All right, Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.8.
It's recommended the board approve the Monroe Junior High Washington DC trip for the 23-24 school year. That is next school year. The dates are already set for this year.
Okay, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions?
Can I go?
You can go with, yes, you have to keep an eye on my daughter Lucy while you're there.
Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.9.
It's recommended the board approve the early graduation for the following students. These are all students that have met all graduation requirements at the end of the first semester. For various reasons, they're graduating. Some are going directly into the military. Some are going to the workforce. All of them are invited back to participate in the May commencement ceremony if they want.
Very good. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions?
No, I'd like to say congratulations, and I wish them all the best, and I hope they come back for graduation.
Yes.
Yeah. Congratulations to all. That's pretty good.
Yep.
All right, Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.10,
It's recommended the board approve the resolution of urgency, necessity, and contract for the elementary school gym floor refinishing with Cincinnati Floor. Same thing that went on in the main gym, simpler version at the elementary gym. It definitely needs
Good.
refinished.
okay. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions?
Will this be done over the summer?
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
Scheduled today, May 30th, when we start after school.
Okay.
Good.
Cool.
All right. Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.11,
It's recommended the board approve the purchase of 2 shipping containers from BEI for athletic storage. Again, those are the ones that they said they can put them underneath the visiting bleachers so they won't even be really visible. And it provides some much needed storage, so.
okay. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
I got a question on the painting. We get that done any cheaper, $1,500 a unit?
We've got our local painter that does a lot of our interior work, possibly could do it. That was the, I think everybody's not to exceed, or that was the estimate amount, so we're still haggling over that. But
I figured we could probably do that with about,
our initial thought was under the bleachers, no one's gonna see them.
yeah.
You'll see them as you walk the visiting session, and that's it.
I figured we
I
can,
tried painting just a face of them or the exterior. So,
if we got about 10 paintball guns and put the students out there and the faculty,
Here's
what about security out there?
So we have cameras that point towards the stadium, and this is going to be large assets that are really not ideal targets for someone to steal and clip, like the gator or something like that. This is going to be football bats and hurdles and, shoving units for extra football stuff when they're in season and that kind of stuff. So it will not be the typical high value, I can see it on the market, like our gator a couple years ago.
And we do have the ability to lock them up, so.
Yeah, and they, like, we have a camera now that looks right at that visiting concession stand. And then we've also got the ones on the express box that look at the field. So if anybody's coming from, to get anything out of their value, they're gonna have a car and drive in there. So, if they're able to even get a car in there, we would have cameras that are going back
Yeah.
into that area.
So in regards to the painting, if you paint it all one solid color, could we get some of the art students out there and like do a cool design on the sides or something?
We think it's largely not visible, just with the traffic, it's truly going to be nested underneath.
And underneath,
Yeah.
okay.
So really, you won't see the profile of that. You may see the doors or the visiting session, but you won't see much else.
Okay.
What color are they prior to paint?
Like a tan, a lighter color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're just
Good
thinking
idea.
of navy to blend in with the bleachers a little
Bleachers.
bit.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Let's see. Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn? Or-
Aye. Oh,
Yeah, I got it right. Okay.
wait, what did I do?
You seconded it.
Okay, yeah, you
Never
did
mind.
second. I have that you're
I
second.
got
I know it's long. Okay, then Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
and Mr. Grant.
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.12.
Last one, it's recommended the board approve a private transportation contract for the following student.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions? Okay. Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Were you just getting ready, weren't you?
Aye.
Okay, and Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried.
Yeah.
All right. Section 7, we will not be adjourning to executive session, as noted in the changes to the agenda. So before we move to Section 8, adjournment, we will start with comments from the board. We'll start with you, Mr. Leeds.
Okay, again, Holly, thank you to your group for the clear audit. That's great. And again, I want to thank the staff for the job that they're doing. Again, nothing but praise from the community. And moving forward with the city and trying to get another entrance into this location is great. We got to have that before we could do anything on the facilities, and I think that'll happen, the way it looks to me. So that's good. We'll keep in touch with Columbus on what's happening on these various finances that we've got. One thing that I didn't bring up is in the uncapping of the districts. Now we have school districts that want all their money at one time. They don't want to wait and get so much a year. So that was brought up today. So I forgot to bring that up to the board.
I heard conversations about that as well.
Yeah.
I
That'd be
think,
nice.
I think you're right that the phase-in will continue. I don't think
Yeah.
there's enough support to.
Is that retroactive? Where they stroke a check for about $35 million.
Yeah,
I think it's more than that.
that's all I got.
If it was retroactive, we could break ground tomorrow.
Yes, we could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, we
See, I
could.
think we're up to about 50 million at
Yeah, I
this
think it's
point.
close to 50 million now. All right. Mr. Carpenter.
Now I'm all
Yeah,
fired
you're-
up over school finance to just think about all the money they've taken from us, or kept from us, I guess. But yeah, I just want to mirror Tom's statement. Congratulations, Holly, and your team. It's excellent. You guys have done a great job the past few years. It's wonderful having just a very competent and obviously you guys have won the Treasurer of the State Award and all those things. It's nice,
Thank you so much.
especially coming from when we were in fiscal emergency, so it's nice. But just congratulations to you and your team. So I do want to thank the elementary school and the elementary school PTO. I went to the father-daughter dance with my daughter Greta, and the girls had a great time. I'm sure AJ, did you get to go?
I don't know, maybe I'll talk
Oh
about
my
that in a minute.
gosh, here we go. Jeez. We're gonna have to hear, he's probably got pictures and everything. Golly.
Just kidding.
But just thank you to everybody. That's always a great time. But again, like I said, my daughter had fun. I had something else, but I'm just gonna go ahead and stop now. So,
Did you wear your Moeller outfit?
I did find a Moeller hat of mine from 1998, but I did not wear that. But anyway, all right, let's hear AJ's high fives from around the hive.
I don't have any this week.
Yeah, right. We don't believe you.
Well, before I get started, I want to make a statement real quick. So there was some really nice comments made earlier during the earlier session there with the public participation, and I want to echo that from this side of the seat, because it really is very cohesive with this group. It's not just appearing that way. We really all get along and enjoy working together, and making decisions for the district can be difficult, but we all really respect each other, and that's also with the administration and the leadership and all the teachers. So it's everybody involved, the community as well. So I really want to echo what was said earlier on my side, because that's a big reason as to why I wanted to get involved in the way that I have, and it's been very pleasant. So looking forward to many years of that. So with that, we've got the high fives from around the hive.
I knew it. I called it.
All right, high five to the Monroe Elementary PTO who hosted their annual father-daughter dance. This was my first opportunity to attend, and by all accounts, the students and their fathers had a great time. There are some really good dancing dads out there in Monroe. I'm not one of them. And so it was a lot of fun, and the kids really enjoyed it. So that was a good time. High fives all around to Miss Badgett and our second grade classes as they performed last week for family and friends. I was able to attend again, and the kids did an awesome job having 2 sessions and getting people out and in and getting everything together to have a bunch of 7-year-olds get up there and sing, and really seemed like they enjoyed themselves. It was a lot of fun. So great job by everybody involved there. High five to all our winter student athletes on a successful regular season, and best of luck to our bowling team and wrestlers who are competing in their respective OHSAA district tournaments, as well as the competition cheerleading team who competes at their OASSA state competition this weekend. And high five to Andrew Wilcox, I feel like his name comes up quite a bit, who finished in first place at the KTCCC President's Day indoor meet last week. Andrew ran a 2-mile event in an impressive, just a little bit slower than Tim, 9 minutes and 32 seconds. But Andrew continues to really thrive, and it's a sport that doesn't get quite as much recognition since it's not really a spectator sport for a lot. So Andrew's doing a great job and representing Monroe really well on the track. That's it.
That's it?
That's it.
All right, very good. Mrs. Hagedorn.
All right. Well, I'd like to say congratulations to the boys bowling teams that headed to districts. I actually had an opportunity, I was able to attend the bowling senior night. And it's actually pretty fun to watch the kids bowl and get into it. I didn't realize what kind of a, sport. Like, I'm not a bowler, so I don't really do that very much. But to watch them, it was a good afternoon to watch the girls and the boys bowl that afternoon.
You got some good bowlers, too.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we do.
They can fling it.
Yeah, and with going to districts, I think that speaks volumes right there. I would also like to congratulate the 4 wrestlers that are headed to districts this weekend. I know as a wrestling mom, it's one of my loves is wrestling. I know it's a lot of hard work to get to that point, and I really hope that they continue on after that, but I know districts is a big step. I'd like to congratulate cheer for their travels down to Florida, and to good luck at their competition this weekend. And they did come in second in the league, so that's pretty good, accomplishment for the cheer organization. The baseball team is going to be traveling to Florida for their spring break, so I really wish that they have safe travels while they go down there and practice. I'm looking forward to the Sweeney Todd. The drama team is going to be, is it a drama team or drama club? I don't,
I think
that's a good
whichever.
group.
I think the tickets go on sale
Yeah.
tonight.
Yeah, do they go on sale tonight? I don't,
I think at midnight.
midnight?
Midnight tonight.
I'm pretty excited to go and watch the drama team and do their performance. It's always a good show. It's always a good time. The kids put in a lot of effort and practice into the dramas, so I suggest, highly suggest that everybody goes and sees that. That's great. I'd also like to mention the Sounds of the Stadium for the band is, I think, the last Friday in March, so that should be a pretty good, exciting time, too, to attend that as well. And I'd like to, again, amazing that we have 6 seniors that have a 30 or above on the ACT. I know that is a huge accomplishment. And like Mr. Prohaska had said, there was a group that had a 25 and higher. That's great that we have that kind of education at Monroe and that these kids can be that successful, because it is life-changing. I know I have 2, one in college and a senior right now that, man, college, all I gotta say. Go if you can, but man, the tuition. I'd also like to mention, I can't believe I'm going to say this, to the seniors that are out there. You have 2.5 months left. Senioritis is probably kicking in, so if you're listening, keep going to school, keep doing what you need to do. You still need to graduate. So keep that up, and to the rest of, the student body, again, 2.5 months. It's kind of crazy. This year's gone fast.
Yes.
So keep it up, keep your grades going, because, you need the diploma, you need the grades to be successful in school and in life afterwards, so keep it up.
Okay.
Finish the year strong.
Yes.
Very good, thank you. Well, you guys have all touched base on just about everything, so I'm just going to be short and sweet. Holly, thank you to your team, and congratulations to your team. Very,
Thank you.
very nicely done.
I'll share that with them.
Polly, thank you very much for taking time out of your day personally to come up and speak to the board. It's very much appreciated. With 2.5 months left to go, thank you to our administrators, to Robert, teachers, staff, but also our community members for making Monroe the best district in the area. I'm a little biased, but I believe we are. And so it's without everyone being involved, it takes a village. So without everyone being involved, we aren't where we are today. So with that, that is it for me. So, item 8.1, it is recommended the board adjourn the meeting at 7 p.m. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Meeting adjourned.